Can I welcome you to the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel. My name is Councillor John Walker and I am the chair of this committee. Councillor Roy Lees is vice chair, who is beaming in from Dubai. Sunny Dubai, Roy. Please note that this meeting
That's right, Chair.
Yep. Please note this meeting has been streamed on YouTube. Members in the chamber, when you want to speak, please raise your hand to indicate to me that you will wish to speak. When I invite you to speak, please turn your microphone on. Please turn your microphone off when you have finished speaking. If you are joining the meeting via Teams, please use the raise hand function and indicate you wish to speak. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue, or if it is not possible, a new time and date will be organised. Please can everybody ensure their phones are turned to silent. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm does sound, please exit the way you came in. Before I start the meeting, I'd just like to mention that very sadly today I heard that Terry Brown sadly passed away. I don't know if it's today or yesterday, which is very sad news really. Terry was a councillor for over 20 years, probably longer than me really. Councillor for Chorley East. He was the county councillor for the Chorley East area, and he has been mayor of Chorley. So I'm certain we'll all have an opportunity to say a few words about Terry at the council meeting in 10 days' time. But I think it would be rather appropriate if we just had a few moments of silence in remembrance of Terry Brown. Thank you. Thank you. That's much appreciated. So, can we start with the agenda? Apologies for absence.
I receive no apologies, Chair.
Right, thank you. Minutes of the meeting on Thursday, the 16th of December. Is it a true record of the meeting?
Can I propose this, Chair, please?
The seconder?
I'll second those, Chair.
Are there any matters arising from that meeting? We have Adele with us this evening, who's going to talk about, because at the last item on the minutes, it does say it was clarified that the figures of 100% planning application included those completed within the time limit. I think there was a query on that, and so we've invited Adele here tonight to just talk about one or two planning issues, which I'm delighted to see you here. Thank you very much. And I'm certain if you've got any further questions about planning while she's here, I'm certain we can, she'll be delighted to, I won't say delighted to answer, but she will answer. So Adele, why don't you tell us about what we're asking?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. And I am actually happy to be here because I think it's important for me to explain a little bit about how the planning system works so that we can dispel any misconceptions and clarify any points of concern. I'm mindful that there were some specific questions asked about performance indicators, but before I go on to those in any great detail, what I will say is when we're determining planning applications and assessing planning applications, the targets are effectively set by government, and depending on the nature of the proposal, there's a time period for determination of generally 8 or 13 weeks. Some of the very more complex applications is a slightly longer period, but that is caveated unless a longer period is agreed with the applicant, and that's set out in statute and in law. And I think what's happened historically, and this is where some of the confusion may have come across me, and I've worked as a planner for, this is my 40th year, so I'm familiar with the processes and I understand how they work. And I think what's happened historically is the customer focus may be drifted, and there was too much concentration on the 8-week target. And what we've tried to do is embed a culture of performance, of good performance management, insofar as we have that dialogue with applicants and agents. So if an application can't be determined within the statutory period, putting the pandemic to one side and all that's come with that, we have an open dialogue with them, and we seek to agree a longer period if we can get to a solution and a resolution, because the whole process of determining planning applications and development management is predicated on the basis of a presumption in favour of sustainable development subject to other material considerations. So the starting point is almost a yes rather than a no. But sometimes, for a variety of reasons, there are things that we try to do to get to a solution. And rather than determining a very, very fast refusal, we often take that little bit more time to get some added value to a scheme to improve the design. We have to wait for technical consultees to respond. We have a relatively slim scheme of delegation at Charlotte compared to our peers in other authorities across Lancashire and the rest of the country in England, because the system is just for England. So there are a whole raft of reasons why things take longer. And when we talk about the words extensions of time, it's something that's set out in legislation to allow that positive and proactive discussion to take place. It's not something that gets the can doesn't get kicked down the road. Things are going on behind the scenes. And the other thing to be mindful of is when we're dealing with a planning application, the customer is the applicant. Technical consultees, we do consult with them and they feed into the process with technical matters. Third parties, such as local residents and neighbouring occupiers, are not consultees. We simply notify those people so they have an opportunity to make comments. It's not something that we get into a discussion necessarily or a dialogue. It's just so that people have the opportunity to make their comments. I did provide some numbers. I can move on to those, but is there any questions at this stage? Does anybody have any questions particularly about the process per se?
Thank you. That was really helpful. Just a quick one. I think it's something we kind of just picked up on ourselves when we were talking last time. Is there any problems or any delays with any of the technical consultees replying within the right timescales?
Yes, in short. And there are a variety of reasons for that, but we have some consultees who respond very, very quickly. The ones that generally take longer are the Highway Authority, the lead local flood authority. Some of the amenity body groups take longer because a lot of them they only have meetings every so often, so they're unable to meet weekly. We have very good working relationships with our colleagues at county, and we do pick up the phone, but the volume of applications, particularly in the last 18 months, has absolutely gone through the roof. It's almost like a 40% uplift in application numbers. There are significant capacity issues with all professional officers. Planning officers, we've been very lucky at Charlie. We've been able to, retain good staff and recruit good staff. We have recently lost an officer who's moved on to the authority, but yeah, there is some delays with some of the technical consultations, and we can't really determine an application without that response from the local highway authority when there's clearly a highway safety matter, so we do have to wait for that. Okay. Yeah. So on the figures, yeah, has everybody got a copy of these?
Excuse me, I have a question for you, Adele.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, what I can't understand, and it's no criticism of the planning authority, but how can we have an 100% performance rate in dealing with them, but yet we have non-determination coming to the council?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lees. Simply because those non-determined applications are not in the figures of determined applications, they're outside the process. So
right.
if we have 10 if we have 10 applications and we have an appeal against one of those applications against non-determination, that application is not determined. Therefore, it's not counted in the determined figures.
Right. But if we lose that case, then it affects the numbers, does it?
No, they're taken outside the process because it's an external decision, because the planning inspector will determine that application.
All right. Okay. Thank
So
you.
in the last 18 months, throughout the pandemic period, we've had 3 appeals against non-determination. 2 of them have been made in respect of safeguarded sites where the applicants wouldn't agree to an extension of time, and you'll be aware of the issues surrounding those sites. And the 3rd one was an appeal against a non-determination of a certificate of lawfulness application, and those kinds of applications aren't counted in the figures in any event. So the figures that I provided for you on the paperwork and on the agenda is applications that fall within what is known as a PS2 return, which is provided to central government. And it includes applications for planning permission and advertisement consent and listed building consent. It doesn't include applications for certificates of lawfulness, applications for tree works, applications for prior approval under the scoping of the new regime that exists where things are permitted development subject to some kind of technical referrals to us. So we've almost got like 2 systems running in parallel. We've got the applications that have got a performance management indicator, and we've got the other applications that are outside the scope of that. But the reason that we don't always have 100%, you know, it's close, and we have developed a performance culture within the team, where officers will pick up other officers' work, where we will have the dialogue, but those determined ones aren't included in the figures. So if I can just talk you through the first line of Q1 majors, this probably will explain it to you, that hopefully. As you can see, there was 9 major applications in that period, where we've had extensions of time agreed or they've been determined. So of those 9, one was determined without an agreed extension of time, and that's likely to be a large shed or something like that, something that qualifies as a major but isn't necessarily a particularly controversial major. And then we've had 5 that have been determined in time or a longer period, so that will include the one that was in time and 4 others, so that gives us 5. And then there's 4 others, and 4 of those were on safeguarded sites. 2 were determined against extensions of time, and the 2 others are actually outside the scope of the ones that are determined. But I wouldn't get too concerned about those, because in the grand scheme of things, of 1,300 decisions, 2 appeals against non-determination isn't something that I would, you know, be too concerned about, really.
Yes.
Thank you. So the 3rd line down that says others, is that all those other areas you were referring to a minute ago, i.e.
No.
No.
No, no. In fact, for the government returns, there are only 2 categories now. There's majors and minors. Historically, what had happened would be majors, minors and others are your householder type applications and your advert type applications. So in that line for others, we had 147 applications, of which 96 were determined without any extensions of time, and all the others were subject to agreed longer periods to determine. It may be that we've sought an amendment, it may be a member has called something to committee, so it's had to go to committee, so it's a longer time period. You know, and there are reasons why things take longer than the 8 weeks. You know, like I said before, it's the technical consultation responses, it's revisions, it may be that we seek an amendment or the applicant decides that's not going to quite work for them, we want to change it. You know, our committee cycle is every month, but something coming up to kind of like the one that's near the 8 weeks, it might not quite tie in with the date. As I say, the scheme of delegation is quite narrow, so for 3 houses that has to go to committee. You know, it's, you know, a lot of authorities just have major applications going to committee, and obviously members have the ability to call applications to committee as well.
Yes, good, yeah.
Thank you. I understand a lot more, but I didn't realise how much I didn't know, that's always the case in these things. Obviously, new here and not being serving on planning. I don't know whether the confusion then for members is laying with the fact that there's a number of things that aren't included in these figures. So when they're being contacted by residents, by applicants, where things haven't been determined, but looking at the figures and everything is determined on time, it's actually those applications that fall outside that reporting. So possibly a note to members saying what is in each one and what isn't included may help. So when they get an inquiry, they can look it up online, immediately see what type it is and actually know where they're starting from.
I would encourage, if members are being contacted by applicants chasing decisions, that they come to us, because we do have concerns, we do have issues with maybe some of the communication that goes on between an applicant and an agent, and it's not unusual for an agent to have told the applicant that they've submitted the application and they haven't. It's not unusual for an applicant to have submitted an inadequate application, and whilst it may seem to be taking a long period of time, the clock doesn't start running until the application is valid. So if an agent submits a poor submission with poor quality drawings and inaccurate information, and it's not appropriately supported by an ecology survey or historic statement, we haven't even started to process it at that stage. So as an applicant, if your agent isn't giving you that dialogue and explaining all of this, it can seem like an incredibly long period of time. So come and talk to us. The ones that aren't in the process are things like the certificates of lawfulness, and that's just a confirmation that something's permitted development, or tree works, or it, the other kind of stuff is often because the agents are really busy and they're not getting back to their clients. If it's a resident who's wanting an update on where we're at with an application, it's not for the local planning authority to be having that dialogue with the resident, because the customer is the applicant. So, the advice to that resident is it's still pending. If you submitted comments, they will be taken into account. If a resident is concerned about an impact on a property from their property, contact the case officer, because the case officer was quite happily go and have a look from their side. I mean, during the pandemic, we had to rely on photographs and video recordings and that kind of thing. So I just encourage anybody who's got concerns about progress on an application or a perceived delay to come and talk to us, and then we can actually give them the real position statement.
I think basically it's communication between councillors and planning officers that's caused a bit of trouble over the last few weeks or months, really. I know at our group meeting, one or two have complained about they can't get in touch with officers and et cetera, But the planning applications I've had to deal with, I've got on very well with officers. They've responded to me very, very quickly. So I'm always a bit wary when councillors say they haven't been able to get in touch and things like that, really.
In response to that, I would urge members to contact me if they're not being able to get hold of a case officer, because I'm not alive to any of that. I've not been getting that kind of feedback. Sometimes it is difficult to get through the switchboard sometimes if you're phoning through the switchboard. But I would suggest, drop a case officer an email. We'll always respond to members. Come tell me who is it you can't get hold of. When have you left messages? Unless I get that feedback, I can't make that better. So please do let me know if there is an issue. That's all I can say, really.
Yeah, true. Are you okay? Councillor Burry, sorry, I keep looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, the issue isn't necessarily applicants, and you're quite right, Adele. It's residents and residents groups and the anxiety that comes about from just impatiently wanting to know the outcome. We've also got planning inquiries and new applications in safeguarded land, and very, very organised residents groups are persistently in touch with councillors, and it's a degree of, as a consequence, there's quite a lot of stress involved in managing people's expectations. So it's almost like a domino effect, we sort of pass it on. We want almost like we want the bad news or the good news, and it's just the handling of that anxiety, really, without us looking like we're incompetent as councillors, or it's just a difficult one. And I think how where we got started with particular issues around planning was the risk we thought we perceived, and obviously you clarified, you know, about the good dialogue you've got and relationship you've got with applicants. And obviously if the government decide to do, you know, slow things up, then it's the government, isn't it? It's not actually a risk to the authority. Like I say, whilst you maintain that good relationship with the applicants. So in some ways, it's been very helpful tonight, Adele, but it doesn't take away the, like I say, associated anxiety of the long wait and the unusual circumstances that we're finding ourselves in because of the, you know, what we did see at one time as being premature applications.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I am mindful of the concerns of the sites in Coppell, Councillor Berry, and I think, you know, the offer to meet with the residents, you know, is still there if they want to come and talk to us. That offer is still there. And I can only echo what's probably been advised previously, is that at this moment in time, given the plethora of applications that have been submitted on safeguarded sites and the stage we're at now, with what is now the fifth and sixth appeal, well, the fourth and fifth appeals and another upcoming inquiry in February, my thinking was to pause the other applications, hold them in abeyance until we got some kind of steer and determination. You know, we have been in contact with PINS, and, you know, we've made very serious representations to PINS about things, but we've got to go through due process because that's the way the system works. But at this moment in time, for the ones that are still current on safeguarded sites, there is no news because they're effectively being held in abeyance because the issue of the 5-year housing land supply for Chorley needs to be resolved, because that's kind of like the overarching key principle of these development proposals. And unfortunately, we can't refuse to accept planning applications. We can't say we're not dealing with it. We've got to submit it, and there is a risk of appeals against non-determination. At the moment, all of the applicants for the undetermined safeguarded sites understand the logic of not sending it to committee now because it would be, you know, highly likely not accepted. So we've got to wait for the outcomes of that. But I understand that, you know, when you live somewhere in a local, you know, in your local community, and you're being bombarded with these applications, it is unsettling. And until we get to a point where we can report, there's going to be no certainty. And, you know, all I can say is, you know, make that offer again, that I am happy to speak to, you know, to residents if they need to come and talk to us. But the difficulty with that one, it was compounded by a system failure as well in terms of the letters of notification. So that kind of like undermines a little bit of public confidence in the system as well, and I appreciate that, but hopefully that was being resolved and people have received the letters directly now. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Burry. Thank you. Just a couple of points. How are staffing levels? Because I think about 6 months ago, I think people were saying planning you were short of staff, or someone left or off sick and things like that. Are you coping okay now?
Touch wood, we've not had any issues with sickness, and we've done very well through the COVID pandemic. We do have high levels of applications and relatively high levels of casework when I benchmark with colleagues across county, but we have very competent officers. Unusually, at Chorley, case officers do their own validation. They don't have support officer staff, so there's a lot of work to be done there. Our principal officer, as I said, left just before Christmas. We've gone through the recruitment. I'm hoping to be able to appoint, but that's likely to lead to a consequential vacancy. And the difficulty is with the professional planning officers, they're simply not out there, and it's very, very difficult to recruit. And, you know, colleagues up and down the land are really struggling to recruit and make it an attractive package for people. A lot of the attraction is for young graduates to go into the private sector. So it is difficult to recruit. But at the moment, we're okay, thank you. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Is there any news on the appeals they had on the safeguarded land in August? Any news when the decision going to be made?
This is one of the frustrating things for us as planners, because I had written to PINS and spoken to PINS asking for this inquiry to be delayed until we had some certainty. But they cited the relevant kind of like statutory processes behind the scenes. But no, the inquiries that took place in August and the inquiry that took place in October, we are still waiting for the decisions. So no news yet.
Nothing's been heard on the grapevine then?
No. No,
Okay.
the only thing I have from PINS is confirmation that they are still considering the applications, and that's as much as I've had. So personally, I think they won't issue a determination until this next inquiry in February has run its course, and then everything in the Central Lancs area will be able to be determined at the same time.
Very good.
So
Thank you.
I'm not anticipating anything anytime soon. But obviously, as soon as we get it in, then we will let members know.
Yeah. Councillor Berry?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just being really ignorant here. Could you I'm not aware of this inquiry. Which application is it, please?
It's the two applications we had in August. One on Town Lane in Whitley Woods, and the other was Tinkler's Lane in Eccleston, wasn't it?
Yes. Right, okay. Thank you.
I think those were the two, weren't they?
And the other one was the Blainscow one, Councillor Berry, which you attended. Yeah. And the ones that are coming up in February are Parr Lane and Carrington Road.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Well, okay. Well, thanks for coming along. It's great that we've had this response personally, rather than written or verbally, what have you. So, thank you very much indeed. You're welcome to stop for the rest of the meeting, but if you want to go, you can do. And thank you very much for attending.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members.
Yes, Councillor Reid.
I was just going to ask you to formally note our thanks. I thought that was really helpful. I learned loads, and it's really useful to complete the cycle to stop us asking more questions and going down a route that was the wrong way to go.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye. Right. We'll move on to item 3, which is the performance focus on communities. And we've got Councillor Murray here tonight, and also Councillor, I thought we had Councillor Gabbard. Is he? He's not here. It doesn't really matter. I'm certain Councillor Murray will be able to explain everything on the papers tonight. So, Councillor Murray, I'll hand over to you. Councillor Murray. What's happened? Councillor Murray, are you with us? Yeah. Councillor, if you are speaking, you are muted.
She's here, but she's not sure why we can't hear.
She's actually saying in the text that she's here, doesn't understand why you can't hear her.
On this, it's muted, isn't it? I assume muted. How can we do? Well,
See if she can leave and then rejoin, that could solve it.
would
Not from here. We can mute, we can't unmute, which is the issue.
Well, if we can't hear, what?
I can call again
If we can't hear Councillor Murray, perhaps Jennifer can go through the report.
You're
going to leave and come back in.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, hi, it's Jennifer. Hiya, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jennifer. I think Councillor Murray's going to try and get back on again, is she?
Yeah, and if not, I'll call her in
Right.
directly.
Okay. Well, while all this is going on, Jennifer, if you want to just go through the report.
Okay, so the background of the report, that each quarter a directorate level performance update is presented to themselves. This is our communities team, our housing solutions team, and our public protection team. Sorry, I hear myself coming back. It's really it's really difficult to speak because I can hear myself twice. Can somebody turn themselves on mute? Will that help? Right, okay. Oh, that helps. Okay, so as you can see, the financial position. So the forecast outturn for Q2 is an underspend for the quarter. We've got a lot of staff vacancies in our service. So we've got some vacancies in our housing solutions team, and you can see that from the service, we've been working to make sure that we fill those posts. So we've got also some vacancies in our community service, which we will be filling sometime soon. So all those posts are out for advert. We will have the interviews for the housing solutions posts next week. And we've got an environmental health officer post that's vacant, and that has been advertised. So hopefully we'll get all those posts filled before the end of March. So for the performance indicators, so we'll look at the local indicators for communities. As you can see, we've got a number of young people who are visiting leisure centres. So that is better than Q3. So this is looking good from our leisure performance. We're also looking at the numbers of people visiting our older people, which is better. We've got our DFG completion rate, which is worse than that quarter. So there is quite a lot of fluctuations in disabled facilities grants, depending on lots of different factors. But at the moment, we are still within our under what we would anticipate our baseline being, which is 10 weeks. We're still 6.8 weeks, which is really good, but it's worse than it has been. So the number of community groups that have supported, we've been supporting quite a number of community groups at the moment. It always goes quiet this quarter, but we're still doing really well. And we've started to form quite a number of community groups and supporting, especially with food and food provision at the moment. We are looking at supporting coaching programs for young people. We're looking at supporting mental health for young people at the youth zone. We're looking at delivering some support of coaching and mentoring people, young people, and working with DWP, who've just launched a youth zone. So as you can see, most of our number of cases that we're dealing with for opportunities created from the community team, we're doing better than we thought we would, but there is some dip, but that is to be expected in this quarter. So things to comment on really. So number of so from our housing solutions point of view, as I mentioned, there is quite a lot of dips in our performance indicators for housing. There's a number of reasons for that, one of them being the staffing issues, but also there's been quite a review into the work that we've been doing and delivering in that service. We've got a new housing manager who's reviewing all our processes and procedures, and we are looking at what performance indicators are and how we can verify them. So there will be some changes in what we do monitor. And then for our public protection team, as you can see, our food establishments and have been inspected. We are looking better than we have done before. There was quite a dip because of COVID and the staff were involved in other work. We have been, we've been doing more inspections. We're due to finish our inspection programme in March and we're on target at the moment. As you can see from our corporate projects, we are agreeing on everything. There is a lot of work still to do before the end of March, especially on our homeless and rushed sleeping plan. We've got a lot of work that we're doing, reviewing the service in housing. So a heck of a lot of work to do, and work still, a lot of work ongoing, but we know what we're doing and we're on track at the moment for our corporate projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aidy, yes, we'll start out the questions. Aidy.
Thank you. I have 4 questions, but I don't think they're particularly complicated. So if I maybe just run through all 4 of them and just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do one at a time.
One at a time, okay. The first one I think is really, really straightforward. On the bottom of page 9, the first indicator is COM01. What do we class as young people? I only noticed it when I was reading it, that on the older people one would say 65 plus. So I just wasn't quite sure what we meant.
Oh, it's under 25.
Ah, okay. Could we include that? Because I don't think many people would necessarily think under 25 for young people in that context.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next one is on page 11, COM 17, which is the residents waiting for the OT assessment. The number 262, it doesn't mean anything to me. Are you able to give a bit of context about that? Like, I don't know how many we carry out in a year or how long it would take to do 262.
Right, so we don't carry out the OT assessments, carried out at Lancashire County Council level. So we have very control for that at the moment, but we are looking to employ our own occupational therapist to, because we have to wait in line basically with all the other central Lancashire authorities, and there's quite a significant delay at county level. We have spoken to County Council and they are very supportive of us employing an additional OT. They will be supervising that occupational therapist. So we are just working with them at the moment to draw up a job specification and a training programme. So that's what's happening. So from that specific, I'll just get the report up. So that was on page 11, wasn't it? Right, okay, so that is, so that 262, it's very difficult to say how long it would take for that particular person to be assessed. So if it is a small adaptation, so like handrails, stair lifts, it can be quite a short period for that occupational therapist assessment. It can be a matter of weeks. If it is a quite substantial disabled facilities grant, such as an extension or a wet room or ramp that you need to adjust doors, then the occupational assessment can take a long while. So it's very difficult to say, you know, there's 263. It's very difficult to say that will, you know, it could be 8 weeks. They could be on the waiting list for 2 months. So it's very difficult to say that will all be done in the next 3 months. So it's one of those that can be quite challenging to be able to say how long it would take. Sorry, that was quite rambling, but I hope.
No, that's really helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The next one was COM 19. That looks like it's a real success that we've referred 913 against a target of 375. I was just curious as to what we're referring people to and where those services are located.
Right, okay. So this is for our social prescribing team. So, so we get referrals from the GPs, we get referrals from partner agencies like the police, fire service. We also get referrals internally from our other teams, like our homelessness team and our environmental health team. So yeah, it's been a great success. A lot of our staff have been done really well to be able to refer in, but also to be able to deal with the cases. So yeah, it's excellent, and it just shows the confidence people are having and the good comms the team are having to make sure that people know that they're there and they can refer in people to get that support.
Okay, thank you. And I had one last one. Thank you for bearing with me. It was on page 12, paragraph 19, right at the bottom, where it talks about the number of applications have been affected by specific cases relating to third-party consent. Is that due to like a change in legislation or working agreements? Is it like a one-off issue, or is it something we might expect ongoing? That was all. Thank you.
Okay. So it was 19, did you say?
Yeah, point 19, please. Just to know whether it was a one-off or there's a reason that caused it. We won't be looking at this next time round.
Oh yeah, this is one of the housing associations that we're working with. We meet with the housing associations with Alistair and Councillor Gabbett on a regular basis, and this is one particular housing association we're just trying to work through the processing with and make the processing better, more effective. So hopefully we've got a way through on that one and a plan to deal with that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Please. Roy?
Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a quick question. Maybe a bit thick, really, but when we look at the targets and it says targets X amount and bigger is better, and we exceed that, and then they say worse than, does that mean we're setting the targets too low?
No, so bigger is better. So we've done bigger than what we'd expected, but worse than we did the last quarter. So what we anticipated, we've done better than, but if you compare us with the last quarter, we've done less than the last quarter. I don't know why they do it like that, but that's how they've done it.
So it doesn't mean anything about what the target is?
So we've done better than the target, but we've not done as well as the previous quarter. I think that's what it's
Should we not be increasing the target?
Well, that's something that we review year on year. So around about this time, we work with policy to see, do we need to increase the targets or change them? So if we're consistently smashing the target every year, then we will be reviewing each of those targets to bring them in line with what we anticipate. Yeah, so that's part of the review.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. Councillor Berry, Julia.
Thank you. I'd just like to go back to the occupational therapy issues. It's just that It concerns me that probably about less than 10 years ago, there was a scrutiny task group at Lancashire County Council regarding disabled facility grants, and any delay in because of whoever's involved in quite a lot of partnerships, obviously has had a critical effect on some of our residents whose health might deteriorate if there's some long delay in actually assessments, and you might have to end up going one step forward, two steps back because a resident's health has deteriorated. So I'm quite concerned about that one, even though you're trying to remedy the situation by employing an occupational therapist. But I just remember recently at county, it was almost like we were employing too many. So I think I might go away. If you can find out where you delay, if there is a significant delay, I'd like to, I will go away, and I'm sure Adi will too, just to check out on the Lancashire County Council side about whether things are all okay there as well, because we used to pride ourselves on our disabled grants. We were seen as the flagship deliverer because we managed to get so many done without, sometimes historically residents had died before they actually saw the modifications, and you know we don't want to go back to those days, and I'm sure we're not, but that's why it's really good to keep a close eye on it.
Well, the message
Another one I'd like, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say the message that we're getting from the officers at county is that the occupational therapists are being used to look at hospital discharge, because the a lot of blocking in beds. So what they're trying to do is the OTs are trying to concentrate on that to get people out of hospitals, but that means that then they're not doing the disabled facility grant assessments. So there might be the same equivalent numbers, but they're being pulled onto other where, presumably because there's more people in hospital waiting for discharge. So they're being pulled on discharges rather than DFG. So that might be it. So it's something to look into.
Again, that concerns me too, because I've got anecdotal evidence that at Airedale Hospital that caters for residents in East Lancashire and at Preston, there's been problems with discharge and actually our residents coming home without the assessments. You know, it's all sort of back to front, and that can be a combination of reasons, but mostly it's because of how chaotic it is and, you know, people's priorities. But, you know, it's just about, we need to be aware of these problems, because the knock-on effect is, you know, patients are coming home without even the basics, without the care plan. And obviously we've got our other disability adaptions, both really, really critical to people's quality of life. So again, that's another one I might take up the road to Preston. So I appreciate your frankness on it, and like I say, we will work this out. It's just it's best to be interrogating it really in some respects. Can I just move on then, please, to COM26? It's just a little one about the employment service. I think councillors could do with knowing what the employment service is, and not tonight. It's just as a note to say, very interested in that and the benefits associated with giving employment support, but I honestly don't know anything about it. And then the leisure centre on page 12, item 16. Have we overcome our customer service issues around, you know, the telephony service, and almost like I think there was an issue really about welcoming the new leisure centre staff and making them feel part of the council, because it was, you know, we hadn't really managed that change that well sort of in the autumn, as far as people understanding, you know, we're part of the council and we operate a bit differently. But there was a significant problem with communications, which we got a lot of flack for on hyperlocal Facebook pages. I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think Councillor Murray put a hand up.
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Hello, can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear.
I kept pressing it and it was off on my side, so I'm not quite sure what gremlin was lurking. But anyway, just obviously Jennifer's been through the report, but just one thing that I'd like to highlight from it is you will note that there's a decrease in community groups meeting, and that's all just to reassure you that the community teams are still on the ground, so to speak, and we get information from the core funding and also the food group and the holiday schemes, but that is something that we need to try and rebuild, and I think partly that is rebuilding confidence of some people to go out after COVID. So we have started doing some things online, like a bit of training and things like that, in the hope that will give people confidence to get back out and up and running again. But I think that will take quite a while, because some people are still very uncertain. With regard to the leisure centres, as you know, Julia, when we took them over, it was a case of this is going to be a massive challenge, and it continues to be a massive challenge. We've had some issues around recruitment, although we have taken we have increased the recruitment now, and everybody seems to be bedding in, although we do still have some shortages. We don't from meeting with Gemma, the manager, she seems to think that everything is okay now, but we do still have some challenges there. And I think probably the biggest one is that Active Nation really didn't have any strategic direction. So when they took decisions, they took them sometimes what was right at the time and not looked longer term. So that continues to be a problem for us. But we are working on, getting the customer service right and everything. And when I've been in, because I'm a member, things seem there's a nice atmosphere, and we're trying to sort of encourage training and just make it sort of not only a nice place to work, but a place where people have got opportunities. Because obviously the leisure centres and the leisure sector isn't particularly great for some people.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Murray, while you're on, can I just talk about the leisure centre? Is the forecast outcome for communities is nearly £2 million? Does that include the budget for the leisure centre, or is the leisure centre a separate budget altogether?
We have a separate budget for the leisure centre, don't we? Because it's a separate company.
Right. And how?
I think Jenny's probably better.
And how is that looking then? It isn't on here, but how is the leisure centre? Are you doing okay? Is the money coming in like it should do?
Yeah.
I think Jenny did a paper, didn't you, on it?
Yeah, it's doing well. We're getting new members. You can see from the other paper sent through. The budget is separate from the community's budget, but you can see that we are getting new. We are hopefully doing a lot better than we have been doing. The situation is difficult with COVID. I know a lot of members who haven't really joined us, but we've got a new app that's there. We've got a new website. We are trying to attract new members. We're looking at discounts. We're looking at leisure passes. So there's quite a lot of work that's going on, and Gem's quite hopeful that we're looking good, and the finances are looking good too.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, are you putting? You say you're trying to attract members back who used to be there. Are the gyms and the pool, are they open all the time now? Are we back to pre-COVID times or not?
Majority of them are, but there is still some areas that we need to reopen. So we are hopefully going to be fully up and running by in March. So everywhere, all our leisure centres are open, but there's still some restrictions. But hopefully by March time, when all the restrictions are lifted, we should be back up and running.
That's good to hear. I mean, we've now been in charge now for a year. Are you looking now to farm it out to other organisations, or are you going to keep it in house?
We're not looking at that at the moment.
No, we'll always keep it as an option, but at the moment we aren't. And just on your point,
Councillor Walker, that's good to hear.
The gyms have all got new equipment in, which have gone down really well.
And I wonder if it would be useful perhaps to have a members learning session on it, or some information, or to send out to members, maybe towards the end of March, Jennifer, because we should have the capital thing then, shouldn't we, about how we want to or consider improving it.
That would be very useful. I think everybody's concerned to make sure the leisure centres, continue to be profitable and get people back there. Really, I mean, my grandchildren go to Brindstall Baths for lessons on swimming lessons and what have you, and it always seems fairly busy. I've been up there once; it was far too hot to be there a long time. But anyway, I know it's hot there, but it's not the ideal place to go and sit for an hour watching children swim up and down the pool. But it's still very popular. Is Brindstall? Beverly, while you're on, there's no mention here of neighbourhoods, and I realise we only had one session of neighbourhoods. can you just say, I don't know whether you went to any of the neighbourhood meetings, but with the new boundaries and whatever, what were the neighbourhoods, was it well received when we started again?
It was well received. I think some meetings were a bit bumpy because obviously we had a shorter time period to get the projects in, and one particular neighbourhood area wasn't happy that they felt like they were being forced to choose a project. But I explained to them that we needed to, in order to sort of not lose the momentum of neighbourhood working, we needed to sort of, you know, crack on with it. The next round of neighbourhood meetings start in January, and I think that probably gives us a better idea of how things are going to pan out, because you know, new councillors have hopefully settled in and embedded a bit more, and people have a better feel for their areas and what perhaps they want to move forward. But I do think that it will need reviewing, just for the sake of, are we getting it right? Is this what members want after this next round? I think we should do that.
Yes, I mean, I suppose it was with all the new members as well. It was all probably a bit double dutch to them to realise they've got money to spend from their own suggestions, really. So I suppose it'll take a bit of time for them to get the thoughts in their mind that they can spend or put forward projects from their own area individually.
In fact, I think it was Councillor Turner that raised that exact point, because she'd obviously been a councillor elsewhere before, but they hadn't had neighbourhood working. So she was a bit sort of, well, I'm not quite sure what to do. So obviously now she knows, you know, what she can do and what's open to her. So hopefully we should get some good projects coming through.
Yeah, good. That's what I'd like to hear. Just two other things. On Jennifer, on your project, your portfolio, there's a mention of environmental health and animal welfare. There's nothing on this report about that. Is that going okay? Animal welfare?
Yeah, we've got a new animal welfare officer, so that's good. So he's been doing some training. So we've been doing a lot of work jointly with South Ribble to help with him and shadowing. We've been doing a lot of inspections of the boarding and breeding of animals. So that's going well. So the environmental health team in general, we've got a vacancy at the moment, which I mentioned, but the officers have been doing a lot of work on COVID. They're getting really back to their normal work now, and they're getting on really well with their inspections, as I mentioned, the food inspections, but also with the housing and health and safety as well.
Good. So just one last comment from me, Jennifer. You've now been in post a year doing shared services. How have you found it? Have you been able to, how much time do you spend in Chorley? How much time do you spend in South Ribble? Is it working well? You probably, I know you'll say yes, but you know, how have you found things this year?
Yeah, it's been really good. There's been a lot of really interesting things and a lot of lessons learned. And I think that's a really good thing about working across both authorities, that we can learn lessons from each other. And I mentioned animal welfare, that South Ribble can help because we had a new officer in Chorley. And then there's been a lot of air quality work that we've done together. And we've been successful in quite a number of bids together. So there's been some homelessness bids that we've done together. There's been some bids that we've done for energy efficiency work that we've done together. So it's been of a great benefit, even if for communities isn't really part of a shared services, but we have been working together to do lots of different things. And I found that working together to put bids in and working has really made a difference, and we've been more successful in that than we have been before. So I think it's been of great value for the teams and for myself, that we can learn from each other and take the best bits of both authorities.
Thank you very much. Beverly, have you anything more to add about your portfolio?
Councillor Nevitt would like to raise something.
All
No,
right,
I don't think so at the minute. No, I think once we've had a members' learning session on the leisure centre, Maybe it might be an opportunity, Johnny, to have a performance panel on it, just so we all are, you know, I do think they're very useful, these meetings.
David?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just had a brief question, Councillor Murray. Before COVID hit, at Active Nation, you could use time credits to get either a free hour at the gym or a free swim session. Do you know if we've reinstated that at our leisure centres now? And if we have...
Yeah, my understanding is you can still use them, yeah.
Brilliant. And are staff aware of that at these leisure centres? Because I know there was a problem during COVID about, I think, restrictions might not have allowed people to use them. I don't know.
They should be, but I'm sure Jennifer will feed that back.
Will do.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Right, I think that's it for that item. One hopes when we meet again next year, a lot of the Reds bullet areas will be vastly improved, and you know, keep up the good work that's been going on. It's been, I know it's been a difficult year arriving to work in Chorley with COVID and everything else, so thanks for the work you've done this year, and let's hope things keep going okay. Thank you. Now, the last item we should be having tonight is the business plan. Now, because this year we have 5 directors, where previously we've only had 4, we usually have 2 corporate policy performance reviews and 2 business plans review. So this tonight's meeting has been deferred until the next performance panel meeting, which is when?
Give me a second.
It's not far away, I don't think. It's March it is, I think. Are we right with this, Vicky?
It's the 10th of March.
End of March, yes. So it will. The business plan for the year will be. We'll be able to discuss it at the next performance panel. So basically, that is it for this evening. Sorry, yes, Eddie.
And one item, if you could allow me, under any of the business. Back in October, performance panel, we had, I forget what that, planning and development we had here, and I asked, because the leader was here, I asked if he would confirm the breakdown of trees that had been planted by wards and partners, and he confirmed that he would, but we still haven't had that information yet. So if we could perhaps have that either for the next meeting or a supplementary note, because that worked really well for this meeting.
If we get that information, Matthew, we can probably circulate it to the councils anyway. It's something we can, Vicky, you're sitting there.
Yes, Chair.
It's something we can get information.
Yes, I believe there's some supplementary information with this agenda, and we'll add that on as well, make sure that we've got that for you.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you all very much for this evening, and I'll say good night and safe journey home. Enjoy the rest of your holiday in Dubai. Roy?
Right, I will do. I am enjoying myself, even though it's 25 to 12 now.
All right, I'm sorry to keep you up.
Okay.
It's whiskey time now, is it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Very good, very good. Okay, thank you all. Thank you. Good night.